Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday night live stream. This one is going to go over some concerning data pieces as we put the puzzle together. And I'm just going to warn everybody right now, if you are looking for like greatest news of all time, you're not going to find it here. And if you're looking for a lot of hopium, unfortunately, it's not going to be the case. So I'm just giving you an opportunity to just walk away right now because it's not going to be very pretty. Having said that, let's jump into it. So first of all, stagflation. That's the whole title of the video tonight, and also the centralized theme of essentially the thumbnail that we have. And you have to ask yourself, well, what is it, and why am I talking about it right now? First, you have to define what stagflation is and how it differs from, say, a recession, which everybody has been talking about for quite some time, even though we haven't hit it yet. And there are some people that say we already actually are in a recession right now. We just don't have an official diagnosis. And then, of course, some people say, no, we're not in a recession. We're not going to happen to it. Whatever it is, this is what we have. So stagflation, as it pertains to this video tonight, is when we have an increase in inflation, an increase in unemployment, and a reduced economic growth. So if we take a look at that, that is stagflation. It means things are just going chopping sideways. Interesting parallel, isn't it? Everything's chopping sideways. Nothing's really going on. You have the prices going up. For some reason, people are getting laid off. And there's not really much going on as far as economic growth. And we're actually seeing that right now. And as it differs from a recession, the recession is a downward trend in the business cycle, characterized by decline in production and employment. This trend lowers household income and spending, which consequently causes many business households to delay large investments. And usually we don't have a massive amount of inflation. Now, when we have something called deflation, that's totally different. But usually for recessions, inflation is not too high because there is not much demand for goods and services because people can't pay for them because they've gotten laid off like crazy. Which is a little bit different from stagflation, in which everything is just moving sideways. So why are we talking about that tonight? We're talking about it tonight because I think it's warranted and we need to. So this was actually from the Kobayashi letter. I didn't know how bad the S&P 500 was over a significant short amount of time. The S&P 500 added $1 trillion, and it all comes down to tariffs. And they say here as tariff headlines quiet down. When we don't hear so much about tariffs, especially reciprocal tariffs, which are coming on April 2nd from Donald Trump and the administration, where essentially they're saying, look, whatever you are tariffing us for our cars, for our shirts, for our alcohol, for whatever else it is, if you're giving 25%, we'll give you 25%. And everybody thinks even Steven, or you could just go to zero and we just have this as a nice long laundry list of good times. However, that's not what's happening. So April 2nd is, of course, I think what Donald Trump says is Freedom Day or Liberation Day. And we'll see how everything goes into effect. Even though tariffs are into effect right now, we'll see the reciprocity on April 2nd itself. So as the talk or chatter quieted down, then all of a sudden the market starts to forget. And then, of course, we have tariff headlines return as more people talk about it, as April 2nd comes into play. And the S&P 500 raised $2 trillion into reciprocal tariff talk. Let me say that again, $2 trillion gone on the traditional markets. And of course, if our markets was even worse. Actually, no, I can't say it's even worse. I mean, by percentages, of course, we didn't lose $2 trillion. That would be a disaster. Right now, we're hovering around 2.6, 2.7 trillion. Correct me in the comment section. That's what we have. And if we take a look here, the search term for tariffs, in just the United States, this is Google Trends. This doesn't give you an exact number of what people are typing in for tariff or U.S. tariff or Trump tariff. It just gives you an interest over time. This is over the past 12 months because no one was talking about this about a year ago. And we can see that just recently, it's hit pretty much its all-time high in February 2nd and 8th and March 2nd through 8th. And it's actually rebounded again as the market starts to talk about it. Now, if we can take United States and we can actually go down to worldwide and see which one it was. And oh, lo and behold, it's the exact same thing. America talks about it. World talks about it. Everybody's worried about tariffs. And that's pretty much one of the big hiccups that's going on in the background. Now, I'm not here to discuss if this is going to be a winner or a monster loser. This isn't a geopolitical channel. It's mostly with crypto and digital assets. And unfortunately, the macro events affect us greatly. So that's why we're talking about this. So then that is, I think, some of the reasons that we're hearing about this in terms of stagflation. Inflation is going up, and it's been going up for quite some time. Unemployment rate is actually increasing, and there's talk about what's going to happen with, unfortunately, with tariff. And because of that people are starting to say, you know, maybe we don't need these jobs. Maybe we need to tighten our belts a little bit more. And then, of course, economic growth. Well, no one wants to grow right now when we could be seeing a massive amount of inflation coming in because the price of goods are going to jump up so high because of tariffs. So this may be a time for economic decline. But as far as inflation, I actually forgotten about this. On Friday, March 28th, I don't know if I'm sure we've talked about this, but seem to have forget. But we've got the core PCE index, core, which is what essentially what Jerome Powell and the Fed are looking at. Previous was 0.3, expectation was 0.3, and we went up 0.4, meaning we have a little bit higher inflation. Core PCE year over year, it actually was 2.6, but it was revised up to 2.7, which would have been great if we would have hit 2.7, but we went actually up to 2.8%, which is core PCE. Again, another indicator that inflation is going up. That's not the direction that we want it to go as far as with Jerome Powell or J. Powell. So now that we've talked about the inflation, what about economic growth? This is even worse. So the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta, and they don't get it always right. That's definitely in concrete. No one is 100%, but just so you know, GDP now is from the Federal Reserve Bank of Atlanta. It's not an official forecast of the Atlanta Fed. However, it is best viewed as a running estimate of real GDP growth based on available economic data for the current quarter. And here's what they say. GDP Now model estimates for real GDP growth, seasonally adjusted annual rate in the first quarter of 2025 is negative 2.8%. On March 28th, down from negative 1.8% on March 26th. So this is an alternative model forecast, adjust for imports, exports, especially like gold at negative 0.5, but it's still in the negative. So again, if we're taking a look at it, high inflation or higher inflation, I could say, and a decreased economic growth. But what about unemployment? Well, if you go over here to Ben's website and steal all his data, there's this thing, it's called the workbench, and you can overlay different charts, which is pretty cool. I like this part. And GDP, core inflation, and unemployment rate. Well, we've already taken a look at core inflation. We know the PCE is up. And let's take a look at the unemployment rate per se. And we can say that this is, of course, going back to 1950, which we don't really care back then. We care about right now, do we not? So why don't we zoom in just a little bit? And we can see over time that actually going back to 2023, we've had an increase of an unemployment rate going up and up and up. Now, it was at 4.2 in November. We had a reduction in December to 4.1, then 4.0, and now we see a slight increase up. And if you take a look at this chart, I mean, I'm not a TA person, but it looks like we're going in the wrong direction as far as unemployment rate. So that is that. Let's hide this. But let's take a look at GDP. Now, that's interesting, right? What do we say? We said GDP, of course, economic growth, and we take a look at GDP as it's pertained here, it actually looks like GDP is going straight up, right? It is. So great. Disaster avoided, right? Not so fast. This is GDP not accounting for inflation. This is called the real growth, gross domestic product. This is approved by the nation's economy less the value of goods and services and taken into account for inflation. And we can see that actually going back when stagflation was an issue back in the mid-1970s and 1960s, we can see that even though GDP goes up in a straight line, almost like an M2 money supply, if we take into account for inflation, we can see that in the 1960s, actually, there was a reduction in the real GDP. And we can see it actually went from 9.3 to negative 2.1, negative 2.0, and why? Well, it's because they're having inflation at that point. 1975 was no different, massive inflation. And then, of course, we come over here, and what do you notice, though? When you have a negative real GDP, usually is followed by these things in gray. What are those things in gray? Those are recessions or stagflation. And we can see here that, of course, we are going down, which is the exact number that we don't want to. Q3 2023, 4.4, Q4 2023, 3.2, 1.6, a little bit of a bump in Q2, 3.0, 3.1, 2.4 in Q4 2024 as it's gone down from 3.1. So there, again, reduction in economic growth. And that's a problem. And that's where we're at. And then lastly, before we get to the good news, I won't just give you bad news. This is from Dan Tapiero, founder CEO of 10T Fund, chairman of Officials Inrock. And he states, it's unlikely a recession is coming, given the Fed has room to cut interest rates, negative 400 basis points, possible to zero if needed. Let me say that again. He states it's unlikely recession coming, given the Fed has room to cut interest rates, 400 basis points possible to zero if needed. Now, Dan's a smart guy, and I know he's got his reasoning for this, but as we cut rates, that is inflationary. When we raise rates, that is deflationary. So I'm not for sure, and he's got a reasoning for this, and I'll let you read that. I'll put a link down in the description, but it is interesting also what he says here, but this indicator below, the probability of recession has never been higher and a recession not followed. Slowing growth ahead, guaranteed by fiscal tightening, rates must drop, liquidity needed. This is taking a look at probability of recession calculated from the yield curve as it inverts and uninvert. And we need to see over here that ever since 2020, the great pandemic, we've had quite an expectations of the probability of recession. It just hasn't happened. So we'll see if it does. So that is all the negative news I can squeeze in as much as possible. Now let's get to the good stuff, which is this. We talked about this before. This is from Trad 6166. I love that picture from the Trailer Park Boys. He says, looks, and this was on July 2023. He says, looks like we'll be in a recession next year. No way the 4-year cycle will be of any significance. It might just prevent people from investing in crypto next year. Then we have to wait 8 years for a bull market. Anywhere close to the last. Crypto would die if that happens. Let me just, before we get into the good stuff, I forgot to pull this up. July 2023, right? July 2023. Let's go over some price action, because that's what people are here for. July 2023. Well, we'll go the 9th. I don't know. So here's what the price was back then. Bitcoin, 30,000. You're up almost 2.5x. Congratulations. Ethereum, sorry, Charlie, you are stuck with Ethereum. Ethereum is such an underperformer, unfortunately. BNB, I don't even know what the prices are for BNB today. Let's take a look. 234. BNB 602. So quite an increase, except for Ethereum. XRP was 46 cents. You're now above $2. Cardano was 28 cents back then. What do you at a Cardano now? 66. You're doing better than actually Bitcoin. Solana was $21. And today it's 123. You get the point where I'm going with this. I don't have to beat a dead horse. But it was interesting what he said here. And if we take a look, and we talked about this before, recessions, even stagflation to a lesser extent, you have an average of about 10 months. This is data that's actually taken back all the way back to 1953. And an average is about 10 months. And also, as a reminder, what happens with recessions, even stagflation, is that the markets bounce back first, then the economy. They are two different things. They are two cars on the same lane. So we take a look back in 1989, 1990, nice little time. I remember those days. We had a recession to a market bottom. It took 3.5 months. And from the market bottom of the S&P 500 to when the actual economy bounced back and they declared an end of recession, it was an additional 5 months. So people were going down, 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 down. They hit the bottom. They got it to actually say, well, hopefully they were buying those dips and going all the way down. And they got to ride it all the way up as everybody was talking recession, but the markets recover first. Same thing happened in 2001. It took 6 months to bottom, but only 2 months to hit from out of that recession. And then, of course, this was the big one. Unfortunately, the Great Recession took 15 months to hit the bottom. And that's the things that you got to worry about. But 3 months to actually get out. And then, of course, this is talking about Fed funds rate and whatnot. So I know that things seem gloom and doomy right now, but I think it really comes down to a lot of information that has to do with tariff, has to do with Jay Powell and what they're going to do and rates and all that great stuff. So maybe we get past the tariff issue. I think we could be in some pretty good waters. But until that time, and everybody's freaking out about this, you're going to see some pretty bad price action, I think. And that's just a guesstimation of what we just talked about. And if that's the case, next week's going to be pretty awful because we're not going to see April 2nd until that time. Anyhow, let me know what you think about that in the comment section. We'll go in a little Q&A. So look, if you like today's video, I don't know why you would, it's pretty negative. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And now let's talk a little Q&A and go from there. Let's see. What do we got? Richie. Hello, Richie from Spain. Thanks, Rusty. Survive and thrive. Orange man is tanking the economy? Yeah, maybe. Let's see. This is when actual use case becomes value, not a silly. And gas fee fees is correct. You know, if we actually have something that actually does something like a store of value, like say what Bitcoin does, as opposed to fart coin, I don't know, I'm just saying, thrown out there. Maybe it's actually a good thing that we actually have utility and we can actually transfer and use for payments and even in Web3 and even gaming, I don't care, but it's just some kind of utility that actually works and we actually say this actually does something. Shane says, I just bought Bitcoin since the last cycle. I work for me. That's great. Romania is advanced. I guess so. Let's see. CB Cable who says, everyone is going to just simply buy Bitcoin next bear bottom instead of alts. Exactly what everyone will do. You would think so, but people love to gamble. That's all I will say. Mir Zen says, can a future U.S. president reverse the U.S. strategic reserve? Oh, I'm sure he could. But that's not in effect of a executive order. I could be wrong here. First of all, not a geopolitical channel, but I believe for the Bitcoin strategic reserve for actually to really go forward and not have it undone by another executive order, I think you have to get that into pass-through legislation from the Senate or from Congress, the House and the Senate, and actually to ratify that. But that's a long way off. I know Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming is trying to make that actually happen, so we'll see if it does. But as far as I know, and I could be wrong, correct me in the comment section, again, executive orders can be undone quite quickly for next administrations. Yeah. The Strategic Reserve for oil was closed liquid. Rob, you now have a political channel. We're organizing to influence the Canadian government. I hope that all works out for us and our Canadian friends up there as we move forward. Yeah, Minutes Network. It looks disruptive. It looks great. You know, Josh and what they're doing over there with Minutes, which if you, there's a secondary channel I have called Dan Degen, the more risky stuff. You just type in Dan Degen in Minutes. We did a 45-minute deep dive, and Josh Watkins was on. We interviewed him, and actually from it was one of the legislative members for the island of Samoa came on and talked about how they're implementing that actual service. So pretty interesting. And we'll see if, of course, if they work, if Josh Watkins works with his brother Mickey Watkins over at World Mobile, it should be a pretty great project, and actually is going to disrupt the $1.2 billion industry. And I think it can do quite well. That's a good question. Rob, which do you think will cave first on tariffs, game of chicken? I think there'll be some holdouts, and people will say, oh, you want a 25%? Fine, we'll do 25%. And they'll stand tall. And then when they get pressure on them, they're like, you know, America seems to buy everything, and they're like the world's customer, so let's just whatever. Maybe. We'll find out. Run Jir, I'm late. Start over again. It's okay. Anybody mind Helium Mobile? I saw the free plan. Looked quite interesting. I'd like to see how that works out. There's another example on Solana. Doing things, actually has a service you can sign up for right now. I think it's unlimited text and talk. I think the data service is limited to X%, but it's super cheap. So if you're looking for that, where can I purchase the most current crystal ball? Oh, you're on it. You're on, just put in Bitcoin price prediction 2025. You'll see all the crystal balls you'd ever want to on YouTube. Let's see. I don't know. John says, how do we get out of stagflation? Monetary policy, administrative pivots. Policy is great, but it only can give you so far. Administrative pivots, that's probably going to happen at some point. Also, is it normal to feel like a total loser right now? Yes, it is. And that's okay. So what I want you to do is really think about what's going on right now. And really think about what parts did I not do? Did I not buy enough? Did I not, I don't know, did I not sell enough? Did I not take profits like we've been talking about forever? Did I do too much leverage play? Did I buy stupid stuff like Hawk Tua and nonsense like that? It's okay if you bought it, but remember, you know it's a gambling chip. So either you dumped it as quick as you could, or you held on to it and you learned a very valuable lesson that those coins are worthless. And of course, have you fallen for any scams? So there's a lot of ways to feel like a loser when you're investing, but it's just like being in the army. Essentially, just show up in the right uniform at the right time and you get promoted. Same thing with investing. Just keep coming. You'll be fine. Let's see what else we got. Comments. Oh, wow. Senate is talking about passing the SBR by August. The Senate is very good at doing just that, talking. Trump can't cave. He'll look weak. Yeah, it's very true. Americans will just pay more for the international goods they want. Yeah, I could definitely see that, especially if, you're a big wine drinker. Champagne, you can only get it from one region. So they're like, well, I gotta have that. Or they're, fill in the blank supermodel car, I guess so. But I think mostly people will say, you know what? I'll probably just buy American. But the problem with, let's just take automotives, for example. The problem with cars built in America is they may be built in America for some parts of it, but the actual mechanics and the parts that are needed, it ranges from 40 to 70% of those parts that are needed to actually construct a car in America and the plants are from other countries. So people would say, well, just buy a Ford. Just buy an American-made car. Well, I will. Unfortunately, they have to pay higher fees because they have to import those parts and products across the globe. So we'll see how this all works out and see who's playing 4D chess and who is playing tic-tac-toe. Let's see. Mr. Samko says DCA until it hits 1 million is a good strategy. If we're talking about Bitcoin, I am currently dollar cost averaging. So that's worked for me in the past. I don't know. We'll see. Mark Funk, FDIC news is good. Yeah, we just covered that yesterday. It wasn't just the FDIC. FDIC here in America, I was corrected. It is actually $250,000 insurance. If there's a disruption or a loss of funds in a bank, that's what the FDIC is for. Government agency, but also the OCC, the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, actually swooped in and did the same thing the FDIC did, which was say, we will give you the green light to do banking services with digital assets. And there's no precognitions or pre-approvals that are needed, which is a drastic departure from the prior administration. So with that, that's actually good news, and we covered that yesterday. So we'll see if the banks want to get into it, or if they're just like, nope, we don't want to custody or hawk to a coin. Rob, are you not concerned about the whole retina scan stuff? Well, I mean, I think it was WorldCoin that was doing that. I just not going to let them scan my retina, and I don't want the government to know too much about me. Unfortunately, I had to show up, and they know me by my face now, and my address and my social, because I got this thing called a driver's license. So if you're like, well, don't let them get face recognition. Sorry, they already got that. But as far as a retina scan, I just won't get my retina scanned. I suppose so. Hey, Rob, what are the wristbands for Sui and Sol? Asking for a friend. Which ones do you guys really want to see? Do you want to see Sui or Sol? Because I can't do both. Let's see. How about everybody just guesses, and I'll just tell you if he did it or not. Okay, this is the last time, though. All right, so let's see. Get rid of that. So the risk levels. Solana's up there at 0.48, but the most risky, what do you think the most risky digital asset is right now? The most risky. Put that in the comments. And I'll tell you in a second. No. Not like between Sui or Solana. Which one do you think is the most risky as far as all the top 30 cryptos that are out there? Chris, gas fee fees, and John Solo got it. It is XRP. And it's because it rocketed up in valuation so much. So it's very risky. very risky. Although, you know, I heard from a guy who knows a guy who's got a friend who's an XRP whale that XRP is going to do big things. Anyhow, Solana is at 0.48, which is just above Bitcoin. Take that as you will. And SWI is all the way down here at 0.234. So if anybody wants to guess where 0.5 is and 0.95 or 0.90 is, let me know. Actually, I can't show you, but it's some crazy prices. If you want to look into more of that, wristbands, there's a link in the description. Into the Cryptoverse, great site. And you get 10% off the first month. And most of this, well, some of the stuff is free, right? Like the DCA tool, love it, it's fantastic. I use it all the time. And, you know, best tool of all time. Yeah. And it's there. And you can check that out. But yeah, 10% off the first month for Ben's site. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Don't diss the pie. Film says, when do you think a bull run ends? Well, I think we're in a bear market. And some people are like, what? There's a difference between like a 3-year bear cycle or a 2-year bear cycle, which is what happens after all-time highs. Like in the 4-year cycle, in the grand scheme of things, you have 2017 all-time high, massive bull run. Then 2018 and 2019 bear cycles, right? 2020 bearish, but we get a halving, and then 2021 we get an all-time high. Then 2022 we go into the bear market, bear cycle, right? And then in between, you can have a bear market within a bull cycle. Case in point, take a look at 2021. We went, you know, January. I want to say we were below. Gosh, we were. I think in December 2020, we were somewhere around 12,000, 14,000, something like that. Then we rocketed up to 20, and then by April of 2021, we were at 63,000. Remember what happened after that? From April to May, June, July, August, September, we dropped at like 40% plus. And that's 5 months. There's a reduction of 20% or more. Market sentiment was low, and we didn't see much of a rebound. That would be, in the definition, what a bear cycle or bear market is. We were in a bear market for quite some time. And then we rocketed back up again. So like you can have these bear markets within bull cycles. And I still think that's where we're at. Or bear trends, sure. Let's see. Someone said pie, not quite over this yet. Where's Jerry? Probably living a sweet life in Costa Rica. Yeah, Terry, I split 10K between Solana and AVAX, but to reach their own. Hey, Rob, what do you rotate into as we get into the bear market? By the way, I love the morning beach flock vids. Yeah, they're pretty great. Into the bear market, I pretty much look for the risk bands and kind of see like what's going to turn first, because what usually turns first in a bear market? Is it, I don't know. Is it like some unknown altcoin, or is it more like what's going to turn in a bear market? Is it going to be AI agents? Is it going to be some obscure Web3 game? No, it's going to be probably Bitcoin first. And then all the altcoins just look to see what Bitcoin's going to do. So I put heavily into Bitcoin, especially as it drops below the risk level of 0.5. And then I start to exponentially, what we call dynamic DCA. If you look in the description, there's a video of what I'm talking about. And I kind of just rolled more money into that. And it's worked pretty well since 2019, 2020. I mean, I was buying 2017, but I didn't know what really I was doing. And I'm still learning. No one's perfect. Dog go to the moon. It's a great meme coin on Bitcoin. Has a massive community. And yet for some reason, it can't get listed on one exchange. But the exchanges that have such high economic values say, no. We only list solid quality projects on our insert piece of trash exchange. And we only do that because of the customers. And of course, what happens? Meme coins get put on like nobody's business. Trump coins on, like no big deal. Melania's on there. Oh, okay, sure, just throw that in there. Put in whatever else it is, and they're like, hey, we just made a bunch of money on fees. But other projects that have been around for quite some time and have a great community get the shaft. Everybody's a liar. Carlos said it. I didn't say it. But Carlos is right. Peanuts. Dev versus Rob, do you believe he still gets his all-time high this year? I mean, maybe. I mean, all the TVL is not all of it, but I mean, you look at 50% of TVL is essentially an Ethereum. And if you throw in these L2s, Arbitrums, the Polygons, the bases actually leading, doing really good. You see an even higher percentage. So for me, just unless that TVL gets unlocked, I don't see it. But man, I don't know. There's cases for and there's cases against. And we've talked about this many a time. John, so did you watch Ben's Death Cross video? This seems all to be according to plan. I watched some of it, and it was pretty good. Ben always has great information, but you know, it's the same thing. Like he said it, you know, this is what's going to happen, and then we're going to get a little bit too freaked out, and then it's going to, you know, retest and keep going forward. Wow. Mike says a fully rotated soul is sweet. Could work out. Yeah. Bobek says ETH was chosen by BlackRock and institutions. This is true, but I will remind everybody that PayPal, pretty big payment transactions processor across the globe. PayPal, for its stablecoin, chose Ethereum first. And everybody's like, huh? You want to do that with the fees? They did it. And then what do? They rolled right up into Solana and said, you know what? We're going to use you as well and see which one hits it. Now, to be fair, the volume of PYUSD is abysmal, and USDC and Tether is by far the majority. I want to say 91% of essentially the entire market is in USDT or Tether and USDC from Circle. And of course, PYUSD is down there. But it is interesting how like you'll have it, they'll start on Ethereum and go, maybe not. And they'll go the other way. The counter argument to that is this, which is Ethereum has been battle tested. It's been around for a decade. Crazy, right? You're getting old. And it's been around for quite some time. And it's weathered the storms. Has Ethereum ever, I'm sure Ethereum has gone down once or twice. Am I wrong? I just don't remember. However, as far as like hacking the chain and things like that, relatively safe. And also because the fees are so god awful high, it's actually quite expensive to hack Ethereum, as opposed to say another chain that is like super cheap to transact on. It's much easier to hack that and make it shut down. So with that argument, you could say that maybe these institutions like, look, we just don't want to lose a bunch of money. We got billionaires out there, and we just want to be safe. We'll go with that one. Maybe use a layer 2, and off we go. Hey, Rob, do you have any alpha on ETH ETFs allowing staking? This would be huge. This would be huge, but I've been hearing about this for a year plus, and nothing comes from it. However, everything, it happens gradually, then suddenly, and then all of a sudden we have it. So I remember us talking about ETFs. I remember us talking about Bitcoin ETFs in 2017. I was like, I'll believe it when I see it. And it came in 2020 and 2021, didn't happen. And of course, it did come about, and I was like, wow. So I will just say that what Jim is talking about is that for the ETFs, for the institutions, it's not very lucrative, or not lucrative. There's not as many advantages of just holding an ETF as far as like with Ethereum without being able to stake, because with stake, you can actually get yield. Now, the yield is pretty piss poor right now, I think. Correct me in the comment section. I think it's like 1.9%. So if you're like, well, okay, I could get into Ethereum and I get 1.9%. That's great. However, why don't we just do T-bills, treasuries, notes? Because, especially for a longer duration, we can get better over there. But the upside, Rob, yeah, maybe. But I will just hope for the ETF of Ethereum that they actually do get that, because it's been kind of a laggard. Study Bug says, alt as a whole been disappointment. I have to agree. Brill T says, ETH has been the biggest disappointment since 2017. Just a bunch of vaporware started because of you. Well, I mean, to be fair, there's been some pretty big gains to be had for layer 2s. Layer 1, I did okay. You know, I mean, I did okay. It's a funny thing because, you know, you just have your one big announcement or one partnership away from turning everything around. We'll see. Nico says, ETH sucks. It has a lot of TVL, but this doesn't make it better. Yeah, probably true. Let's see. Ethereum network has maintained continuous operations. Wow, without any completely. Thank you, Rusty. I appreciate it. So I stand corrected, and Ethereum has never gone out. It's pretty great. Well, which I guess would strengthen the other argument is why institutions would only pick Ethereum. Is like, well, you know, we like the investment aspect of it. We just don't want to have everything lost in, you know, cyber wonderland. And we'll go with something that's been battle tested and proven. And that's it. It's a little bit slower, whatever. We don't really care. And as far as like transaction fees, they're like, do you know how much it costs to move gold across a nation? Yeah, exactly. Do you know how much it is for a wire transfer in Swift? And we got to move, you know, I don't know, hundreds of millions of dollars. We'll be okay with some transaction fees of Ethereum. I laugh because if I didn't, I would cry because banks suck. Let's see. Bobek says, guys, wake up. Not the best, you know, when one shows them with big players seem like it's true, you know. You know, also if you're old like me, take a look back as far as like Blu-ray versus DVD, which one actually won that battle. XRP is way cheaper. That's true, it is. We'll see. And Geek Dice says the whole Congress agrees to convert some gold to Bitcoin, so I can buy Bitcoin for $10K. There's been talk. We'll see what happens. I know this is actually a talking point by Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming, so we'll see how that works out. Rob, you sold your Doge, or still accumulating? I sold a chunk of it. This was months ago. You know, like every so often I say, hey, I sold some, right? Just look at some of my videos or some things about X on Twitter. I say, hey, I sold some. You know, sorry. And one of those was Doge. Did pretty well for me, but I still hold a nice fat bag. But I had to because there were some real estate deals I just could not pass up. And they were just too good, and I'm glad I did. So on that situation, we'll see. And then everybody fades. They fades Doge. They fade Doge like it's just a meme coin. I got to tell you, there's something about it that just has a staying power, and I think it's just going to be there. Like, have you ever heard anything negative about Dogecoin? Right? Do you ever hear anything negative about fill in the blank your altcoin? Exactly. I should have sold all when you did, Ron. Nah, it wasn't the greatest time. It wasn't like I sold anywhere like top, but it was good enough to, you know, use those funds to buy a complex. So I was happy enough. PlayStation 5 says, selling gold to buy Bitcoin is the dumbest thing the U.S. government can do at this point. No. They can do pretty stupid stuff. Don't underestimate the stupidity of a government. Or Betamax versus VHS. Betamax was better. VHS had first mover advantage. Yeah, exactly. Betamax. They don't need to sell the gold, just revalue to market prices. Brill says, I faded Doge the past 2 cycles. Of course, cycle was nothing in terms of Bitcoin comparative. Like, what's 20% of more Bitcoin? So, yeah, exactly true. And now we're devolving. So, well, I hope that didn't give anybody too much of a bummer or downturn, but unless we get this tariff figured out and where it's going to be, and without certain countries bending the knee, or actually just certain countries just saying, okay, this is what we're definitely going to do and we're going to stick to that. That's all we really want. And that'd be great because then we can say, okay, we're not going to buy that product from you. You know, it's very simple, you know, and if we get that, great. But until that time, until April 2nd, and actually give that a couple of weeks afterwards, because there's still going to be posturing. There's still going to be egos that are going to come into play. And you're not going to know. So I think that April is going to be kind of a really topsy-turvy, crappy month if you're looking for gains, but a great opportunity to buy for eventual big plays. All right, everybody. So that's it for tonight. So if you like today's video, thumbs up, subscribe, all that great stuff. Tomorrow we'll do another live stream. Hopefully Jerry will come on from Costa Rica and I'll have a good talk. But that's it for tonight. Thanks everybody for stopping by and hanging with me. I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Adios.